Okay. Meeting's called to order. For those who care to join us for Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay, for a matter of record, there was an executive session tonight where the team reviewed some personnel issues and employee-related issues. That meeting went from 5:45 till just about 6:55 for the record. Okay, with that said, I turn it over to roll call, please, Terry.
Mrs. Fish. Here. Dr. Gatachu.
Here.
Mr. Gordon.
Here.
Dr. Gursky. Mr. Kirsch.
Here. It's on. Jed, you're on mute.
Okay. Mr. Kirsch.
Here.
Mr. Reichert. Mrs. Edmeades.
Here.
Mrs. Gordon.
Here.
Mr. Huron.
Here. Thank you, Terry. Okay, second order of business tonight is meeting minutes from April 28th. Do I have a motion to approve the April 28th board meeting minutes?
I make that motion.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, no? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. For board administrative announcements tonight, as of June 9th, 2021, board meetings will be full in person with YouTube Live for viewing only. So to participate in public comment sessions, you must attend the meeting in person. We're shifting forward back to similar to what we used to do. Please make note. Second order of business under board administrative announcements is Columbia Montour. Nothing new to report tonight for that from my seat representing the district there. CSIU. Dr. Gatachu, do you?
We didn't have any meetings, so there's nothing to report.
Okay. Finance Committee, Mr. Kirsch, anything tonight?
Also, nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. And once again, back to you, Dr. Gatachu. Curriculum Committee, is there anything
We
there?
did not have any meeting again.
Okay. Okay. And then we have an item tonight. I need to make a motion to revise item 7.1, which follows, to read not to exceed a maximum cost of $99,885. That's a formality for some information that came forward that we'll address later on in the meeting, but we need to add it to the agenda tonight by making a motion. So I ask that we make that someone makes a motion to revise item 7.1 to read not to exceed a maximum cost of $99,885.
I'll make that motion.
$99,885.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That would be a roll call, right? Or no?
Miss,
Yeah. Yep. Sorry.
Mrs. Fish.
Yes.
Dr. Gatachu.
Yes.
Mr. Gordon.
Yes.
Dr. Gursky.
Jen, if you could hear us, you look like you're on mute from what we're looking at. Anybody's got their cell phone, want to text her just to let her know that we can't hear her if she needs to change her disposition. Okay.
Make her not present or wait? Not present at the vote. We can just do it for this vote. Okay. Mr. Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Reichert. Mrs. Edmeades.
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Now we're on to the superintendent's report. I'll turn it over to Dr. Boyle.
Good evening, everyone. Enrollment report, we do have 2,239 students across the district, including the pre-K students and pre-K and Head Start of 82 students there. So we're just shy of 2,200 students in the district. And we have seen a little bit of decrease in enrollment, but we're working and hoping that next year is going to bring students back into the district and we can move forward. So if anyone has any questions about changing their model from what model of instruction they've used this year back to in-person or Ironman Cyber Academy, please feel free to call Dr. Bickhart or myself. At the primary school, we attended the outdoor book fair. It was May 11th and 12th through the 15th. The students do receive a free book from the Homeschool Association, and then they were able to purchase additional items. There was a wide variety, and the kids were really excited. I was over there yesterday with Mrs. Ely. Also for May, the home and school activities are going to be the fun run on May 14th. On May 21st, home and school are going to bring an ice cream truck to the building. And on May 28th, they're going to have craft kits for them to do. So home and school, we appreciate you very much and what you are doing in our buildings. Liberty Valley has Girls on the Run on Saturday, this Saturday. So a lot of events will be happening there. The Knoebels trip is scheduled for May 28th. The permission slips have gone home, but those students who cannot attend the Knoebels trips, there will be fun activities at the school for those students, so we still have additional items for those that won't be attending. Also, the statewide stock market challenge, Henry Naylor finished first place in the state for elementary school divisions, and I want to thank Mrs. Byers for her help and her leadership with the stock market challenge. It's pretty exceptional when an elementary student makes the top of the state from our district. Yeah, very cool. At the middle school, I want to congratulate 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students who attained national recognition of excellence performance on their 2021 national Spanish exams. We had a total of 4 gold, 5 silver, 6 bronze medals, along with 28 honorable mentions. So that's a significant number of students that we have in our elementary level that are doing very well, or in our middle school level doing very well with their Spanish. A lot happening at the high school. We have another student, Luciano Spavanta, who applied for and was selected to attend the high school Math, Science, Technology Summer Institute. Mrs. Halbig had posted the applications and the event information in her classroom, and he is very grateful to her for doing that. Otherwise, he might have not have known. So we're really appreciative that the teachers do pay attention when I send them interesting things, and it's getting up into the buildings. Also, the high school has received a $7,500 grant from the Pennsylvania Farm Bill's Ag and Youth Program. We will be using it for small engine lab upgrade, and Mr. Mike Schultz is one who submitted the grant and received the funds. So we appreciate all he does in our ag program. Prom was held on Saturday, May 8th, and it was very successful. It was an outdoor prom, and I got the feedback from various people saying that it was a really good idea to have it here on campus. It was good control. Kids had a good time, and I want to especially thank Mrs. Rebecca Riedler because she did an outstanding job with decorations, and then of course there was support from several of her faculty. So that was a great event, and the students were grateful to be able to participate. The Wind Ensemble and Chamber Choir will be having their concert May 18th at the high school. Then on May 19th, there's the choral concert. Keystone exams are from May 18th through May 26th, and high school students are going to be facing a lot of exams from now till the end of the year. There's finals from May 27th through June 4th. And then we also have a couple graduations. We will have a graduation for life skills students on May 21st. Graduation for our seniors is June 4th in the stadium with a rain date of June 5th. And valediction is May 27th. Letters for the summer programs that are going home at this point. If there's any questions, please contact Dr. Bickhart's office. in the community, the Giant Feeding School Kids program, and that's that program where they have you say, do you want to leave your change from your, $22.98? Do you want to leave the 2 cents in the pot? That has been tremendous because we are being awarded $6,590.39 for our food service department. So I thank you to, of course, Giant for the program, but for all the community members who have participated in that program. It does come right back into the community, and it's a very positive thing for our school district as well. One thing that happened this afternoon, so I'm a little bit not completely organized for it, but we've been working so diligently to make sure that mental health and there's an awareness, there's suicide prevention awareness, and we're not shying away at all from speaking about these things. We're really trying to make sure students understand opportunities, and the SPM Club, which is at the high school, has become a remarkable group, and they did a video that was shared with CMSU, who then shared it with BHARP, which is a mental health programming throughout the state, who then shared it with PA Cares and the Office of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, as well as SAMHSA. So we're looking at all this information going out not only locally, but on the state level and national level. And at the state and national level, they are agreeing that they want to put this group as a pilot group and a highlight in the media across the nation. I don't even think I know Mrs. Morgan has gotten the information, but I don't think the kids even know this yet. So it's pretty exciting, all the work that's happening there. And Mrs. Jones may end up being able to get on some point today or tonight, and if she does, I'll let her speak more to it. Additionally, CMSU has received $12,000 grant that is being given to the district for calming rooms. We are going to create calming sensory rooms at both the middle school and high school with these funds. So we're really moving forward. That's something that some other people have talked to me about. Mrs. Morgan has been instrumental in working to make sure we're addressing things for the students, and I appreciate her help way prior to board. So I'm looking forward to that and working with you. I've got goosebumps. I am so excited about this. But they have a grant for us to have our students in the SPM group become trained in the Youth Move program, which is peer support for suicide prevention. So kids have understanding, they can understand how to answer the questions, they'll know where the resources are, and they will be a point of contact for the other students. Our SPM group has talked about how they want to not just be at the high school, but they want to be across the district. So they're looking to have events in all the buildings, work with our SCL curriculum, and just keep moving forward. This group is tremendous. That's all I can say. One other item was on May 6th, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. It was to wear green in sign of support. We had the dress down day here at the school district for that, and instead of putting our money outside the district, we were giving it to the SPM club so that they have finances to do some of the activities they want to do. So that's just one club and all the things that are happening with them and with the outside agencies that are supporting us. So I have a great deal of thank you to Jen Jones and the people she's working with at the state and national level. And she and I definitely will keep at this. So I appreciate it so much. Thank you. Um, 27th. You're welcome.
And one other thing I would like to add is I would like to just say thank you to the high school band for participating in the parade on Saturday, Riverside Celebration. It was really nice to see them in the.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Huron, Mrs. Dr. Gursky says that she's logging on and she is not muted, so she's not sure why we can't hear her.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Ryan, do you have to unmute her because we're seeing it as a mute?
No, the only option I get is to ask her to unmute, which now she's unmuted.
Yeah, now it's good. Thank you.
Jen, are you out there now? Hello? All right. Okay. We'll get that figured out here shortly. All right, so we're on to the next portion of tonight's agenda, which is our first of two public comment periods, which is our standard practice and has been so for many years. This first public comment opportunity is for agenda items only. And if there's anybody that would like to make a public comment, you need to please state your name, your address, and we afford everybody up to 3 minutes to share their public comment. So at this juncture, I'll look through the room first. Is there anybody within the room that would like to make a public comment? Okay, no one in the room. Thank you. And Jeff, is there anybody online that would like to make a public comment at this time?
Please raise your hand if you'd like to make public comment on Zoom. No public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next order of business tonight is our presentations by outside guests. And tonight we have a preliminary land development plan and alternative athletic fields. And I'm turning this over to Ken. Looks like he's stepping up. Okay. The floor is yours.
Mike's not on.
Mike's not on. Okay, I just wanted to introduce Logan. Earlier in the school year, the co-op coordinator, Mrs. Hughes, brought him down and asked if we had any type of project that he could get involved with. And at the time, we were still early in the feasibility study idea, and we were looking at the fields that were out here, and I really didn't have anything. And I said, well, you know, if you want, you could lay out using what we have here, kind of survey the dimensions and lay out a school building and see just how much you could do with parking lot and so on and so forth. Well, it took him quite a few weeks, and he came back with that. He didn't bring that drawing tonight, but I was impressed with what he did through this co-op program. He's here with his co-op was with the Crossroads group. In fact, his employer Josh Hoagland's here with him, and he was finished with his project, but not finished with the school year. So then a larger project, which I was kind of reluctant to let him start on, was the fields across from the primary center. And figuring out, you know, how many fields we could get over there, what would the orientations be, so on and so forth. And I was impressed by what he did. So I said, well, how would you like to present that to the school board as what you learned in co-op, and explain just the steps you had to go through and so on and so forth to get it done. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Logan Manomsky, and presentation is pretty impressive.
Hello, I'm Logan, and I'm here to present the fields that I made for the school. So I was lucky enough to work with Josh Hoagland in the Crossroads Group civil engineering and surveying firm out in Paxinos. And first, he told me that I should have a project on the side, something, maybe an old school project to work on. So I came here and talked to Ken, and he gave me the project of the school. And that's what I started with, was putting the school where the current baseball and softball fields are. And I learned a lot from that, built that up, and saw what I could fit in there, and worked with things like tax maps, looking at public records to find boundaries and the right of way of the roads, learning how you have to look at the specific boundaries to fit in, know what exactly room you have to work with. And once I finished that up, I was given the task of making these practice fields in the new leased land that's going to be over across from the primary school. And this is what I have drawn up. So I learned a lot from this project. The main thing I learned from this is that it's nowhere near as simple as it looks. There's a lot that goes into putting fields. There's a lot to consider that you don't think of at first, like how much different in height one end of the field is from the other, where the water on the field is going to go, where it's going to pile up, soil types, and all this and that. So what I have here is I've managed to fit, is it going to work now? There we go. I managed to fit a practice football field, a field hockey field, and then a new softball field, baseball field, and a practice soccer field, all to get them on campus here. Nice fit in, along with additional new temporary parking here for the fields. So this land right here is not very level. There's a lot that goes into leveling out this thing. Like this football field here, from this corner to this corner, was about an 8-foot difference in height. So you want to find a way to turn the fields to try to get them as flat as possible. So you have to do the least amount of cut and fill to get a flat field. Then you also have to look at where the water on this field is going to go. You don't want a perfectly flat field because water is just going to pile up. You want a slight slant. This field, along with the soccer and the field hockey field, have a slight crown to them, which will push the water off to the sides. Along with the softball and baseball fields, those have a 2% grade down to push the water out, which then leaves these areas piling up with water. Here, I looked at the land. This is the highest point in the land, so this is where the water from here is going to go in all different directions. I had to look at which specific directions it's going to go and what the best way to move the water is without getting too much in one area. What I designed here is, since this is the highest point, I've got one swale or ditch running from here, and it drains out to a large basin down here that keeps the water piling here and not spilling out onto the road below. And then from the football field and field hockey and parking, there's another smaller swale that also prevents too much water from spilling out on the road. And the last bit here is a small swale into the lower part of a small basin here. And through those 3 basins, it collects basically all the water that's going to land on this entire area here. And then that I learned about trying to fit the different fields here, how they have to be turned. I learned that baseball fields and softball fields actually have to be oriented a certain way because of the sun. They want to keep it facing a certain way so the sun isn't going to be bearing down on one team specifically, whether when they're hitting or pitching. So you have to figure out the best way to orient them so they're not taking up too much space and fit in the other fields and the least gaps. And this is the best thing that I could come up with here. Any questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question. Do you plan on pursuing something like this after high school?
So my hope is to go for a degree in civil engineering. It's been something I've been interested in for quite a while now, basically my entire high school career. And my number one thought is I want to be a civil engineer. This co-op has really helped me learn what it's like, and I've only come to love it even more.
Great.
I just want to say that your drawings of the when you did the building before out here was absolutely beautiful. You did a great job with that. And very nice job here. Good luck with your future. You'll be a great civil engineer.
Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's called networking.
Yes.
Logan, do you have cards made up yet?
No, not yet.
They need a card.
All right. I'll get on that.
Okay. Great job.
So I spent probably, was it the last 2 months on this? I only get 2 hours a day with my co-op, so it's kind of a slow process when you don't have that much time to work with. And there's a lot of different steps. The first part was orientation, then you got to figure out slight movements to try to get the least amount of difference in height. Then you got to worry about draining the water, and it was all a step-by-step process, one step to the next. So it took a bit of time, but it was fun and I learned a lot.
Awesome. Thank you, Logan. I wish you much success.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming tonight. Appreciate it. All right, next order of business tonight is the KCBA group is here to give us a preliminary report on the feasibility study. So I'll turn that over to our friend from KCBA. So we kind of have two items on the agenda for these folks, the preliminary feasibility study and our field study. So we'll kind of package that in one right now.
Dr. Boyle, you had asked about Jen Jones. She says she's unable to find the
Zoom, yeah.
Zoom link. Okay.
I'll set it up for a future meeting.
Thank you, everybody, for inviting us here tonight. My name is Michael Kelly. This is Jamie Bortz. We were two of the architects that worked on your feasibility study. Started back in January, so we've come a long way. We have a lot of information to share with you tonight. Hopefully, it starts to develop some conversations and some. I feel like I'm blocking you. Start some conversations about improving your buildings. Things that we know are broken physically, that we are suggesting to repair over time, and setting up a bit of a master plan for you to understand when that should occur, how to budget for that, which is very important, as well as solving some of the academic advancements that we heard from a lot of your principals. We had a great committee of teammates throughout this endeavor, your senior administration, as well as all of the principals from your schools. A lot of great input, and that was very helpful as we shaped some of these ideas that we'll share with you tonight. I'm going to go very quickly through a lot of information. Feel free to stop at any time. There's large books of information on its way to you as well. So certainly this is not the end of this study. This is a time to kind of publish what we have, and allow you guys to kind of consume a lot of information tonight, and certainly start to frame some questions. Our team was ourselves, Moore Engineering, which is mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineering, and a firm called K&W Engineering, looking at civil engineering concerns. We looked at, the agenda for tonight is to go over those goals of the study, how they were achieved, look at the existing condition analysis of your 4 buildings, and start to talk about some planning options, from the fields across the street to possible expansions and building projects that you may consider. Talk about some next steps. Well, how would those things start? And certainly take on any questions that you guys have. The schedule over the last several months, as I said, we started back in the end of January. As you can see, have involved a lot of calls, a lot of in-person meetings, and a lot of back and forth with your district over the last 3 months. We're talking tonight about the presentation. We have some more calls with the administrative team coming up, and then looking to come back at your next board meeting for some follow-up questions. So there's no voting tonight or anything on any big projects. This is really just a presentation and talking about beginning to answer some questions. So the focus has been on existing conditions, educational programs, student enrollment, looking at all 4 of your schools, analyzing the environment, the educational environments. Buildings are schools. We're architects. We can look at the roofs and the windows, but we're also listening to your principals about the needs academically in those spaces. We have a great program, but we wish we had a larger space for this, or we have a really robust system here. Things in this building is really trying to hold us back from where these things could be. So the process, as I said, looked at all 4 buildings. We walked through extensively with our architectural team, with our engineering team, looking at the entire district over both counties, few municipalities along the way. We received a lot of existing condition analysis. We're creating Energy Star portfolio reports, and all kinds of reports and data to bring back to the district that'll kind of feed some of the conclusions here with you tonight. As I mentioned, we're looking at 2 very different focuses. Evaluate your schools: educational issues and operational issues, because again, these buildings need to work as schools. We always kind of like to throw this in about what has changed. Why is a school from the 60s not maybe the best or providing the best educational fit? We know that our classrooms certainly have changed. The sit and get model is not how we deliver education to our students today. So it's much more of a collaborative environment, and these types of settings are things that we're looking at in our schools. So one of the challenges that we found in looking at a variety of different buildings and building types, you have a brand new beautiful building here. You have the intermediate school, which is in good shape, but a little bit further out of town. The middle school, that certainly is a bit of an aging building and in the center part of town, but also there's some site concerns there. And the high school, which has a great addition at one end, other parts of the building that haven't been renovated over time. If we're looking at what to do with certain buildings, if one building may be replaced or one building may be moved, you're talking about a large amount of students that you'd be moving in any option of reallocating a school or possibly closing one school. If you're looking at, say, the middle school, that's 3 grades at 600 students. If you're looking at the intermediate school, that's 3 grades. It's 1,200 students that would need to be relocated somewhere in the district. So anytime we're considering the option of moving away from an existing building, that's a big endeavor, and certainly something that needs to be well thought out. When we looked at your existing schools here now, they're operating very, very well with the students and the grades that are within them. We kind of talk about the containers that each of these schools can hold. So the primary school can hold 4, intermediate and middle both have 3, high school can hold 4. Those containers happen to be not only from your Head Start preschool program all the way through 12th grade. So it's kind of like 14 containers. If you move it one out of one, that's fine, but the other buildings without any type of work can't fit just moving one grade from one building to another without kind of an equal swap. So what we found was if you're looking at possibly a middle school and closing that, we've got to move 7th grade someplace, you've got to move 6th grade someplace, you might switch intermediate schools with primary schools, and now we're kind of juggling things all over the place. We need to make sure that we are looking at a scenario that obviously finds a home for all of these students. So in one configuration that we're going to propose tonight was the concept of closing the middle school, reducing the amount of, or not reducing, but reducing the amount of students in the Head Start program in this building by relocating some of them into another building. That would allow 3rd grade to actually move into primary building. Would allow possibly 6th grade to move into that intermediate building. An addition could be proposed onto the high school that would then bring Head Start 7th grade and 8th grade into the high school. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit tonight, why we think that may be a suggested way forward. We're going to start by kind of talking about the existing condition analysis. At Danville Primary School, as I mentioned, a pretty brand new school built in 2011. Liberty Valley is an older school built in the 60s and added onto in the 90s and renovated. So even in 1997, that's still about 25 years ago. There's equipment. The building itself is in fine shape, but there's certainly some equipment there that could be replaced. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing equipment usually lasts about 20, 25 years. So those are things that are starting to age as we would expect. The middle school, built in 57, it was actually built as a high school, renovated back in 88. Obviously, there was a large flood that occurred in 2011. So most of the work that's been done in that building since 1988 is really just kind of a reaction to the flood of 2011. At the high school, built in 75, it was expanded recently. But a lot of the other parts of that building from 1975 are the same. There's certain areas that some walls have been added because there were some ideas a while, I guess, originally in the 70s, of open pods. That kind of philosophy didn't last very long, thankfully. But other than that, the 2-story area where most of the students are held, most of the classrooms are, really hasn't been touched since 1975. So in the primary school, we kind of gave a quick analysis of that and said the site's in very good condition. There's some additional play area that was asked and desired from the administration. But overall, the building's in very, very good condition. With continued maintenance, this building will certainly last you many, many, many more years. We did take a look at all of the programming in each of the buildings, created these kind of educational sheets, every room identified for what academic is going on in those spaces. So when we looked at the building itself, it's a little unique. The classrooms on the first floor, because they were created for the younger students, are a little bit larger than the rooms on the second floor. The reason for that is they have, each room on the first floor has a toilet associated with the classroom space. So for kindergarten and first graders, pre-K students, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of them are coming to school and need that attribute directly connected to the school. So analyzing the building itself, you actually have 2 more classrooms on the second floor than you do on the first floor, even though they're stacked right above each other. We identified this here as kind of where everybody lives. We have a couple of these areas in green that are administrative. So we found several full-size classrooms in this building that are being used for faculty rooms. They certainly are needed and they're using them, but they're full-size classrooms that could certainly be used for academic purposes rather than some of the needed, admittedly, faculty spaces. We have a big room like this that is certainly being used for the board, but again, it could be used for educational purposes, not only during the day. Maybe there's a new place that the board goes. We're trying to find spaces in the primary building that could be turned back over, let's say, to full-time academic space. We have another classroom over in the library. So one of the suggestions here, one of the things that we saw in the analysis of the building, it's a very large building for 521 K. That's because there are quite a few classrooms used for Head Start. 10,000 square feet of that space is being used for that Head Start pre-K program. There's 7 classrooms and an administrative area. So they are taking up a large amount of space in the building. The gym and the cafeteria are adequate size because they're only serving 600 students. Art, music, support spaces, things like that are, again, in good shape. They're only supporting 3 grades of students, only 600 students. Challenge becomes, if we add more students here, are we now taxing those spaces? Are the spaces that are adequate for 600 certainly suddenly inadequate for 800? So again, in working with the administration, we asked those exact questions. We said, well, what could we do? What kind of things could we look at here if we're considering bringing additional grades into the school? So we came up with this plan, which may be a little tough to read here, but I'll kind of walk you through it. The kindergarten spaces would remain on the first floor, and we're moving these 6 right there are all Head Start classrooms now. They would be relocated throughout the building, 2 of which would actually go to the high school. I'll have to wait to the end to get to the high school part. But some of that was for some academic purposes as well. But what you're seeing here is now first grade being moved to the first floor, part of first grade. And then moving upstairs, we have the remaining areas of first grade, second grade, third grade. We have 3 Head Start classrooms that would be relocated upstairs as well. So we still have the Head Start administration where they sit. We would still have the Head Start drop-off point at the same location. But the students would be, in this case, moved in a couple of different classrooms in this existing building. So 7 classrooms down to 5 in this building, with the other 2 going to the high school. You saw the faculty rooms are no longer full-size faculty rooms. We did keep this room as the boardroom. I was kind of warned maybe not to suggest that just yet. So this room stays as a large group instruction room, certainly could stay and set up as the boardroom. A couple of minor physical things that would change. So that's just changing the name on the door. We didn't move anything yet. We're just saying, all right, you're now this grade, you're now this grade. We just moved people within existing spaces. A couple of small moves physically in the building that, again, working with the administration, said, all right, if you're taking away all these larger faculty rooms, we need at least 1 large faculty room on the first floor. So we have 1 faculty room in the administration area now that also has 2 toilets in it. The idea was if we move the toilets across the hall, that creates a bigger faculty room. That may be large enough and sufficient enough for grade-wide meetings and certainly meet the functions and needs for the faculty rooms. Similarly, we had said, again, your cafeteria is working well, but you're about to add 200 more students. Does that mean or lunch periods are split, or how would that work? So the idea was to try to create a little bit more capacity in the cafeteria. So this was an idea of taking 2 existing storage rooms and opening them up. This would be a way we'd take those walls out. You could push in with some tables. You could push in with different types of seating. Here we're kind of showing, there could be an operable wall in there. Sometimes students with sensory needs actually enjoy those types of spaces where they're away from big, tall, loud gym area and can kind of push into a smaller, more intimate space for lunch period, even though that's, again, directly off of there. So for supervision reasons, it's very well monitored. Maybe if you did well on the test this week, you can have lunch with the principal. And those types of things could happen in that storage area. So one of the ideas and considerations for the primary school was, again, as we said, you'd move 2 of the Head Start programs to the high school, convert a couple of classrooms, and able to bring 3rd grade back into the primary building. We now have a K-3 building here in an effort, as we kind of stated in the beginning, of where would we realign grades if we're doing a different, say, the existing middle school building. So observations, again, it's working very well. Adding 200 kids could tax some of those spaces a little bit. They felt that 200 kids would be okay. 400 kids, so if we start adding additions or really expanding this building, well, now you're going to need additional art rooms, music rooms. You're probably going to need to build a cafeteria. Now we've crossed that line over to a much larger expansion and certainly a much larger physical building that would be needed. So this was part of the study to say, if we're bringing another grade in, who would it be? How would that work? How does everybody fall, and what kind of physical changes would be needed? That's some ideas for the primary school. Liberty Valley, again, currently holds 3 grades, happens to be 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Very nice building. We talked a little bit about the proximity. We heard how far remote Liberty Valley was from everything. And I said, okay, well, it's only 8 minutes away. Like, I get that everything, it's kind of nice that the downtown is very condensed. All of the schools are right here. This campus is certainly very, very nice. So yes, it is remote as it relates to maybe the other buildings in the school, but it's not that far away that certainly we would reevaluate where those students are going. We thought that the site was in fairly good condition. There's some cracking and things in parking lots. Again, that's just over time and the lovely Pennsylvania winters that we have. The building's in good condition. There's a couple of places like operable windows that were a safety concern in that building, that some of them go up and then come slamming down. So there's ways to kind of retrofit some of the windows, possibly replace them over time. Some flooring, some roofing issues, and then just looking at code compliance things like handicap accessibilities in toilet rooms, as well as HVAC systems. So it's kind of what you'd expect out of a building from the 70s, and a building that hasn't really been looked at or upgraded in its larger equipment in 25 years. Right now, the current layout for the school, again, as I said, is 3 grades, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. You have a lot of support classrooms. We always want to make sure, as we're looking for where students can be housed in the school, that we're providing enough special education learning support spaces. So you have a large amount of those spaces here in red in the lower right corner, which actually used to be part of the preschool program. So we said, all right, well, what happens if we try that? Let's look at moving Head Start in there. What does that do to the rest of the school? Well, what happens is you basically eliminate 3/4 of the learning support classroom. So we said, all right, well, that's not really something that can work. We can't push 3 Head Start classrooms and the administration back into this building without negatively affecting the special education support and student support spaces. We said, really, if you were going to do that, you could move all of Head Start here. We'll move all 7 classes and administration here, and then you just have a row of support spaces for 4th and 5th grade. So as I said before, this building is kind of a 3-container building. Right now it has 3 grades. If Head Start moved in, that's a grade, and then you would only have 2 grades left. So we said, well, we're not really sure we want a 4th and 5th grade intermediate school kind of by itself, having 3 grades, K to 12 grades together, academically makes much more sense. So maybe what we look at here, if there are any changes, if we're pulling 3rd grade into the primary school, maybe 6th grade could actually come down and take over the 3rd grade rooms, or however they wanted to be distributed. But certainly, without doing anything, we could move a grade. 3rd grade is out, 6th grade could come in. We don't have to touch anything physically in the building other than some of the things on the maintenance list, things like the roofs and HVAC, lighting, and some plumbing issues. So physically, we didn't have to change anything to allow that to happen. Now, you could, if you wanted to, add a big addition onto the side of that and bring this building up to 4 grades. This here shows about what a classroom addition would look like. Along the side, you can see here we missed that playground, but you're kind of building right up to it. Might look something like this. We would add some toilets, have some small group instruction rooms, because again, with more students, you're going to need more learning support, with 8 classrooms. So it's something you might consider in the future. We wanted to study that and see if it would fit, but it's not necessarily something, if it didn't work, bringing 3rd grade into this building, this would be an option to bring 6th grade into Liberty Valley by building an addition. So again, replace kind of some of the existing materials, mechanical equipment. We looked at a variety of costs, from full renovations, where we're going to rip everything out and start all over with finishes and lighting and ceilings, as much as $11 million, down to recommended building upgrades between about $4 and $5 million. That's fixing the things that are broken or about to break. Budget items that we think you should be budgeting for over the next year or two, for just keeping that building moving forward. We think it's a fine building and certainly something to hold on to. And an expansion or something like that, that's $4.25–4.5 million to expand and build an addition like that. If we could do that here and bring that grade in here, and all we're doing here is taking a closet into some expanded cafeteria or moving a toilet, that's substantially less than $4.5 million. So again, it's good to kind of look at that. This was the menu list of things under that roughly $5 million infrastructure improvement, chillers, HVAC equipment. It's important to say what's not included in those things that were also on the list of things that needed to be considered. Replacing all of the windows. This was only replacing some. The new roof was something that's probably 5–6 years out. So it could be included, but now that's raising that number up a little bit. And some work in the parking lot. So the infrastructure improvement of things that we think are kind of the most critical are covered there, but it's always important to kind of know what else may be lingering in the future. So for the middle school, as I said, built in '57, originally the high school. One thing that was fun here, we thought we'd start above and show you the site. The red line here shows the property line that the district owns. You can see that you are right up next to the existing sewer plant. You are also right next to an active train line. You are also right next to a lot of water and a levee. And when you look at a FEMA map, that's the floodplain around that site. So we had to zoom out this far even to get the edge of what's not a floodplain down in that area. The entire site is in a floodplain, as I'm sure you know and recall from 2011. The site itself is in poor condition because of all that flooding. In talks with civil engineers and environmentalists, they said one of the troubles with 100-year storms is that they're happening every 20 years now. So that site is in a very compromised position, and there's really nothing physically you could do about it other than hold on and hope that it doesn't happen again. Obviously, after 2011, some provisions were created. We saw things like all the doors kind of being undercut, all the flooring on the first floor taken away, all the electrical equipment now up. Obviously, there was a lot of government FEMA money that was spent just to get the building going again. So there's a lot of concerns there about when the next one would come, and there's really no way to prevent that. And where it sits is ripe for that to certainly could happen again. Outside of that, physically, the building, it needs a lot of work as well. There's a lot of windows and window frames that are starting to fail. There's a lot of ADA compliance issues. You see here, anytime you have a door that's kind of stuck into a recess, PDE back in the 70s said you can't have a door swing into the hallway. So we said, all right, we'll pocket the door. And then in 1992, the federal government said you also have to make them ADA compliant, which means you need at least 18 inches on the pull side of the door for someone in a wheelchair to be able to open that door. So every door in that school would have to be expanded by 1.5 feet to meet ADA compliance. Things like stair railings, window frames. The stair railings need to be not only is the railing not ADA compliant, but you also don't have the high enough guardrail as far as safety considerations go for obviously anybody that may fall over the side, that they need to be higher. We have issues academically as well, trying to fit people where they can go. We actually have an old classroom here that just a accordion partition was placed so we could have a small group room on one side. This is actually the pathway that gets you to the STEM room, which is a tremendous program. And we heard so much great things about it. It's the last room down a hall. You got to go through another room to get to it, and it's a little undersized. So you have all these fantastic programs for music and art in a lot of spaces that are somewhat undersized. The classrooms are a little small. There's limited areas certainly for collaborative learning. Middle school is one of my favorite building types to work with. I mean, these kids are coming from having somebody read to them and just reading with a book to really embracing technology. And when they're sitting in a building that was built in the 50s, it was actually designed as a high school. It's just not meeting academically the settings that we'd like to see for middle school students. So the building itself physically certainly has some challenges. Academically, there's a lot of limitations. And then the site, and all the money we want there. But there really is no getting out of the floodplain area. So summary of conditions there, again, we've got all the issues that I just talked about, and our recommendation is the district should be looking to relocate those middle school students and relocate that facility and that academics. And I just kind of said that, look to abandon the building and look at some other educational options. So the high school, very large building again, built in the 70s and expanded recently with a really nice addition with music and the auditorium. So kind of that, as we look at it, the left side of the school, very nice, did a very nice job. There were a lot of desires from the high school administration going, all right, let's get into the rest of the building. Let's look at the academic areas of this building and tackle some of their challenges. We thought the site was in good condition, the building's in fair condition, a lot of classrooms without natural light. Because of the thickness of that building, and again, a 70s design of the sun was bad, windows were bad, and I guess kids will just learn by paying attention and watching one person in a corner. That theory didn't really work out very well. Everything had been then forced into it. Classrooms built in the middle of the school, the library in the middle of the school that kind of cuts off some circulation there. We have ADA issues, as I mentioned, in the middle school as well. And then just general sustainability concerns, LED lighting, better indoor air quality, and things like that that could be physically upgraded within the school itself. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers have kind of created this laundry list of items, both mechanically as well as electrically, that could be considered in any type of renovation and upgrade, as well as plumbing needs. And again, we have ADA compliance issues. Part of the building is not sprinklered, the newer part is. So that could certainly be added and suppressed as well. So looking at the site, we have a large building. We have the primary school. We have the district offices as part of that high school. You have the community center further down the road. We have one access point primarily that brings all people to all of these buildings and offices and stadiums from one road. There is a bit of a back door, through the neighborhood and back out as far as emergency goes, but that could be certainly something that could be looked at and possibly planned for over time to consider, is there a way to get a new access out to Route 11? It is a state road. That's PennDOT. That will take many, 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 many years. That could be something that's done independently. We did look at, with our civil engineer, to say, where could we meet that? There is, or was at some point, some sort of access piece here. So we thought that would be the best location to maybe consider in the future. If you were looking to create another way, either into the property or certainly out of, sometimes it's best to have come in this way and then kick everybody out another way and try to spread out cars, buses. You have students driving here, so that's a little bit of a scary thing as well. So maybe there's a way to create another access over time. And then certainly the sports fields that were just talked about tonight, we're going to show some concepts there as well. So we took a look at the building, first floor and second floor, and analyzed, starting with the second floor. There's 32 classrooms on the second floor. More than half of them don't have natural light. We have a windowless library that's huge and somewhat underutilized. A planetarium that's not being used as a planetarium anymore. And that corridor circulation, because of that large library, that's actually kind of discontinued. So in working with Jeremy and the administration there, we said, well, what can we do on that second floor just internally to possibly upgrade that and look at some new ways to lay out that area? And the first one we thought of was, all right, well, let's move the library over to the planetarium. We can actually build that out a little bit. There's the mechanical and receiving area there. That can pop out. And let's put the library on show. That's a beautiful view, actually, looking out to the valley, to the hospital. Let's put that front and center on the outside of the building there. And then look at blowing through a corridor there in the middle, maybe adding some support spaces where we don't have natural light, some classrooms and some collaborative areas in the middle with access to natural light. I'll show you that in a second. And a new library that pushes out to the corner. So how we would, that allows all of that circulation to kind of run all straight through and to create some cross circulation kind of going north and south there through some of these collaborative spaces. There are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 classrooms that all touch these 3 yellow spots. Those are kind of these collaborative core areas, and if we were able to bring natural light into them, we could create what's called borrowed light, where we're actually gaining natural light into those spaces by doing that internally, meaning that you're not looking out a window, but there is glass in your classroom up high that's bringing natural light in from above. So what we're looking at here is actually popping up the roof in those 3 locations with light wells that would allow light to come in, northern light, so you're not getting direct light, but northern light coming in, providing ample space into those corridors or collaborative areas. And then those adjacent 12 classrooms now are picking up some natural light. So you can kind of see that there where you've got, basically big parts of the sun coming into the building and spreading its light out left and right there. The support spaces are small group instruction spaces, which were needed, academic spaces, teaching spaces, faculty toilet rooms, and all the kind of things that don't necessarily need direct natural light to. We kind of created that as a support bar. They all have access and visual access to some of these collaborative areas. So anywhere that we have students, especially teenagers, walking around, working together, working independently, we want to make sure that there's close supervision to all of them as well. So in these arrows here, we're showing some faculty rooms that have direct glass access to where some of these students may be working together. And as I said, certainly beautiful views from the library looking out. So this was a rendering of what that would look like, kind of looking down that hallway. So we have some areas where students can meet in between resource periods or before school, after school. They're sitting at counters, different types of seating. You're in the center part there where you can see the natural light kind of pouring into the middle. Two different classrooms on this side that are gaining natural light from that light scoop coming in there. These are areas that could be glass, could be walls. We could close them off. They could be closed off rooms, or part of the corridor circulation going across the high school there. You can see the library and the views out to Danville beyond there. So we had 32 classrooms. We added, actually, by doing this, 3 additional classrooms. And now there's only 8 instead of 17 that didn't have natural light. Some of those areas that were further in the corner. And in doing so, we would actually be reducing additional classrooms. So 8 is certainly a lot better than 17. And we've created these new collaborative centers right in the core of the building. So even if you're in a classroom, one period a day that's one of the ones without natural light, you're coming out into those spaces. The core of the school itself feels so much brighter, so much more alive. And we really just kind of gutted that center zone. Everything else on the side, the science rooms that you already have completed, remain. The classrooms on the other side remain. And we thought this was a nice example for what to do on the second floor. Down on the first floor, DAO offices. We have some, what we were calling a little bit of the outdated labs. Large spaces there on the first floor. We have kind of an undersized and stepped cafeteria on the left-hand side. So our idea here, starting with a cafeteria, was to say, well, if we have the stepped area here, and down in that lower level of the cafeteria, we have a bit of a corridor there that's kind of a blank corridor. It's solid walls on either side. What if we leveled off the cafeteria and then just created a lower level part of the cafeteria that could also be used as a student commons or an academic space throughout the day, whether it was lunch period or not. So what you're looking at here is kind of an upper cafeteria, lower student commons idea. So that corridor is still right there. But now, instead of just a dark corridor, it's a wide open space. This is kind of standing down there looking up to the cafeteria. So again, during lunch period, we could use that for lunch. When before and after lunch, this could certainly be used for academic purposes, one-on-one instruction with students, pulling groups of students together in small groups. This is kind of looking from that upper cafeteria down to that lower student commons area. And again, we're starting to create more academic spaces, spaces that will be utilized throughout the day when it isn't just the 3 times during the day when lunch is served. Same theory over on the other side of the building. We kind of have blank corridors going around a bunch of windowless classrooms. There's really no connection from those classrooms out to some of the common areas that you already have existing. So our concept here was to say, well, let's create a little bit of a visual link from the lobby area there of that portion of the high school. Let's create a collaborative area where all of these labs, in this case, we were moving the DAO out. I'm going to jump ahead and tell you we reversed decision on that and said maybe we won't move the DAO out. But what we're looking at here is that there's access to a collaborative core from a lot of different larger labs. Things like family consumer science, things like art, things like technology, business, ag sciences, all not only, some of them have access to the exterior, but they also have a lot of access to this kind of collaborative center from these labs and educational spaces. So this is what that may look like. You might have a door that gets into a classroom, but a garage door that kind of rolls up from these classrooms to allow for science week, art week, any kind of display that may come out into that space for further student engagement and additional collaborative areas. So in summary, what we were looking at here was a renovation of the cafeteria area, kind of creating what's been termed kind of a meet, greet, and eat area where it's not just for eating. There's a lot of other attributes to that lower commons. Creating a STEM kind of academy center to that. One possibility was relocating the district office, but certainly they could stay. And we looked at adding capacity to the school. If we're going to bring 8th grade in, what does that mean? We talked about internally splitting up 7th and 8th grade curriculum. Wasn't something that was desired. So we said, all right, well, let's do the same thing where we say, if we bring 8th grade in, does that fit? Well, not really. And if we bring 7th grade in as well, now we really have a bus. We have way too many students in that school if we're adding 400 more kids by adding 2 grades. I wanted to share, the concept of these collaborative core areas and classrooms that kind of come into that. A school that was honored recently down in Texas. But these kind of views I thought were a little bit better than the views that we were creating in our presentation there. And just trying to show this accessibility from classrooms into those spaces. And then again, a variety of academic purposes that can occur in larger open spaces like that. Takes a classroom and really makes it kind of a little bit more endless. We talked a little bit tonight about the fields across the street, looking at a variety of options and growing across the site. There's certainly some advantages about thinking about doing that sooner than later. It's, as they say, it's always good to plant grass in the fall. So one option that I know you guys may be discussing later tonight would be jumping ahead and trying to do that this fall. You could certainly do it this fall or in the spring. But the idea would be if you're moving away from these fields, if we're building anything into those fields, you want to establish the new fields sooner than later. So it's something to think about. There are a lot, and he left, wish he stayed. There are a lot, he did a great job. There are a lot of reviews. What he missed and what he'll learn are all of the reviews, all of the state, local, environmental reviews and things that have to go into that great plan that he put together. That takes time. So if we decided, hey, let's go seed that, it's not like seeding your yard. There is a lot of steps that have to go through. It's 4 to 5 months at least of approvals and things that would need to occur. So that I know is something you guys are going to talk about a little later. But certainly grading that, seeding that, and letting all of that get established. And then, we could figure out if that's a hockey area, if this is a baseball area over here, and where everybody goes. But certainly there's some advantages in seeding that for what could be coming. And here comes the next part, a possible expansion of or relocation of a new building onto that site. So one of the things we wanted to share that we were asked to look at was, all right, middle school's in rough shape. What if we build a new middle school across onto those fields? What we found here is, well, that's a big area until you put a building on it. This is about 150,000 square foot building, which is a little bit larger, but almost the same size as what you have over there now. This is 3 stories, so we were trying to make it even more compact than the existing middle school. We're going to be adding a lot of buses onto this site. Where do the buses go? We're going to be adding a lot of staff parking. Where does that go? So you can see the building itself, when you look at things that can stack, like classrooms here, but things that can't, like gymnasiums, cafeterias, things that need loading, that site fills up very, very quickly. We tried to squeeze a little bit of a parent loop in the front. So it's there, but it's tight. We looked at a quick concept here. One desire was, if you're going to build a new building, let's build a large enough gym, maybe an additional auxiliary gym that could be utilized by the high school. So there was some advantages there of having another facility on this campus that could be shared by all students, not just middle school. But again, it's a little tight. Another option. Say, well, what if we build a classroom addition at the end of the high school? What if we build a gym addition on the other side over by the gymnasium? We said, well, we kind of like that idea, but the classroom addition really only brought 8th grade over. And as I stated earlier, there was a desire not to put up 7th and 8th. And the gymnasium on that side, that side of the site right next to the athletic fields there, that's a little tight already. You have that nice parent loop that was there that we were kind of putting a gym right in the middle. We agreed that there needed to be a gym associated to bringing middle school kids over. We didn't want to have middle school kids. How much was the middle school kids crossing over into areas of the high school? So we said, well, what if we build a larger 7th and 8th grade center at that northeastern end of the high school? We talked about how 6th grade can go in an intermediate, 3rd grade moves here. That leaves 7th and 8th. There's a lot of advantages of having 7th and 8th together academically, and there certainly could be a lot of advantages to linking them in with a lot of the commodities and things that you have existing in the high school or planned. So let's look at that option. That addition is about 62,000 square feet over 2 floors. So it would match up the same height levels as the existing school. But you can see that's pushing into left field there with the baseball field. So certainly the baseball field would have to be relocated in this option. What we're looking at here is a model of the existing school. You can see the parking next to the DAO. And that's about the size of a 62,000 square foot addition along the side of that. We're maintaining the parking lot and loop here in the front as part of your recent study or recent project, but looking at the possibility of expanding that building out to the east there. We're adding parking. One, we're going to be adding some teachers. Fortunately, 7th and 8th grade students don't drive. But also there's already some parking concerns existing on the site as well. So we're looking at adding about 70 spaces, which is more than we'd need for the 7th and 8th, but about would help certainly with the existing parking concerns. Looking at this here, this is kind of standing outside the existing school now, and what that would look like kind of moving across. We could actually reclad and create some larger windows in this existing part of the school. We have those kind of white bands there that we could remove and bring back with brick, so to make all of this kind of feel like it was one piece and increase some of the glass into those classrooms. We're proposing to add some windows there. You can see this from the field side about how far out that would go, and it really is kind of facing right where parents and students are entering the site. This as an idea of a Danville junior high, we can call it whatever we want. But this would be a separate entrance from the high school. That is something that was recommended by us and certainly desired by the administration to make sure that we are having, you would still have a 7th and 8th grade principal, you'd still have counselors, you'd still have a nurse. You have all of those things that are coming administrative-wise from the middle school into this space as well. So we wanted to have a separate entrance for them, as well as a bit of a separate entrance from for the district office as well. So you can see that there. That's the existing lobby of the district office. We're just coming at it from, we'll call it the front, versus the side of the building. A little slow as it. This is a little bit of a view here again, looking at the front. So that tan wall here is where the addition starts. That's the district office entrance going into the existing district offices. And then we have a new entrance to the side for 7th and 8th grade. But this is a big move. This is an idea of creating, as I said, about 40,000 square feet on the first floor, including a large new gym. We'll zoom in here a little bit. Oops. We'll show, and I'll divide this as we kind of go. Here, let's back. Existing there in the first floor. So what you're seeing here is new expanded few offices here for the district offices, because we are bringing some district offices over from the primary school here, so that all of those district functions would occur in the district office. We have counseling for 7 and 8, admin and a nurse for 7 and 8, life skills, a fitness room, locker rooms, mechanical room, and a large new gym. And then some of this academic core here that we talked about before got a little bit smaller because we wanted to add some additional classrooms back here. But we still have ag labs, industrial arts, several different business studios and things that are all able to move into that first floor academic commons. We relocated all of art here, so not only we have high school art, but 7th and 8th as well. So 7th and 8th has its own room for art, but they could run over and do some ceramics at times, or they could be able to see those things. So you're starting to see that there are some advantages of having the younger students have access to some of the things that the older students currently have. We talked about this kitchen common core here, where we have the upper kitchen and the lower student commons. I'm sorry, cafeteria. Here we're looking at how we would have 7th and 8th grade with its own kind of cafeterias. This kitchen actually used to be double-sided. It actually was accessed from 2 ends. So all we're doing is just doing that again. So same kitchen, We would upgrade a couple of the equipment in here that was on our list of things to fix. Serving area for high schools, serving area for 7th and 8th grade. They only have 400 students as opposed to 800 students, but we are able to segregate the big kids from the little kids. High school seating at about 350, 7th and 8th grade cafeteria at about 200. Again, as this is a common space, there are areas and attributes of the front of that could certainly be, kind of base attribute area for. So this is the entire first floor here. Again, you can see listing anew. We have family consumer science and Head Start, 2 of those Head Start classrooms. They would have exterior access. They're right next to Head Start, which that program thought that was a great idea. We have business and technology in the middle of the school. Art, as I said, kind of clustered as part of the new addition, but with access to high school and 7th and 8th. We have our 7th and 8th grade STEM Commons, just like we have the high school STEM Commons right next to it, as well as some student spaces upstairs. Life skills for not only high school, but also 7th and 8th grade. So we've spent a lot of time over the last few weeks making sure we got room for everybody, right? We didn't miss anything, because we don't want to come back and say, oh, wait, the 62,000 square foot addition should really be 80,000 or 90,000. We want to make sure that we're finding adequate room for all of the academics that are moving over from 7th and 8th potentially. Again, up on the second floor, that's the divide between new and old, or new and existing. There's also a clear divide as well between the high school side and 7th and 8th. That was important to make sure that while we had some shared amenities, if I'm an 8th grader, I come in the front door here, I'm coming up this commons area, all of my classes are on the right side of this blue line. If I've got an older brother, they're coming in here and they're hanging out on this side. We're really trying to not forcefully make a lot of overlap between the two. Still have the ability to keep 7th and 8th feeling like they have their own identity, their own areas. So that's a pretty clear divide. We even talked about doing things in the ceiling, on the flooring, so you can physically step through that threshold. Oh, now I'm in the 7th and 8th grade center. So we thought that was a nice idea. Again, coming from the direction of your principals and academic leaders. So here again, that divide between 7th and 8th in the high school area. We have 18 classrooms now in this edition that are all larger than what they're coming from. 4 science labs that are larger than what they're coming from. Multiple small group and large group instruction rooms. STEM rooms, we kind of have that dirty lab, clean lab. I'll show you in a minute on the first floor. Commons areas for students. Again, these are things that weren't available in the existing middle school. A gymnasium and an administration that are dedicated to 7th and 8th grade. Here's a view from kind of the entrance into the school. I think this next one actually moves. So this is what it would look like for a 7th or 8th grader entering into this new 7th and 8th grade center. They have a lot of natural light coming into the building. Again, we know the problem of the existing building being that thick. We want to make sure we're solving them here. They're coming into a nice space, a lot of natural light, but very quickly we're surrounding that with academics. It's a nice little space. There's some nice ability for student activity here, a little bit of an academic porch up here as well. But everything else around that are all the classrooms, all the labs. We talked a little bit about the clean lab here as far as a computer room versus what's right next to that, which is part of our STEM room. So that's kind of where the dirty lab happens, where all the experiments happen. We have a computer lab across the hall from that as well. You can see a couple of interactive views. I'll show you that in a moment. This is a view from the side there, looking into that lobby again, looking from the gym back across. You can start to see the counseling area, the STEM lab behind this glass with the second STEM lab here that's a little bit more about computers. Things that are right at the front door, we want to be a little bit cleaner than some of the larger areas for STEM. And then the upstairs area. Again, a small little area here for individual instruction or group instruction, 2 small group rooms that sit here. These are some science labs as part of the academic wing, and then basically all around here are our classrooms and things for. So if you're upstairs here from that academic porch looking down to the lobby, again, you can see it's a nice space for 5, 8, 10 kids to be able to come out of a classroom, work collaboratively together, be seen, be supervised, come downstairs to this lower level as well. So even as a 2-story space, it still very well feels connected for 7th and 8th graders. We didn't want them to feel lost, getting thrown into this big giant pool of high school kids. They have their own identity, they have their own space, and they have all the academic core classrooms that are that they enjoy now, and things that are missing in that existing middle school. Oh, that's going into the gym. Large gym space here. I think this seats about 600. Again, large enough to be split in half. You could have multiple gym classes going on at the same time. It is a full-size high school court, so that could obviously be used for junior varsity or any high school needs as well. As it is connected, even if it's on the other end of the building, it does have its own locker room space. So if we look at that 2-story existing wing, we're looking at 3 different types of levels of construction, which relate to 3 different types of cost. We have low-level renovation, high-level renovation, and new construction. Our goal is always to try to limit as much renovation as possible to low level. Low level means finishes, all new lighting and ceilings, but we're not really moving walls around too much. In the high level areas, we are adding some walls. Back over here, we have to add a floor because that's the existing art that actually steps way down into a lower level there. We talked about some of the areas here for the collaborative area, and then this line here for new construction. Upstairs, again, very similar. We have highs and lows. That middle area is a lot of work, but then we have a lot of classrooms that remain, and certainly very limited work on the side where we just renovated all of those science rooms. And this is here kind of showing again that concept that we talked about previously. These spaces could be divided. We could have additional classrooms that are provided in those areas. And again, this is kind of a repeat of some of those things that we were considering in the high school renovation. So the site itself, when all was said and done, with this addition to the side, would move at least the baseball field away. If the baseball field moved, that could be a practice field on the upper level. The softball field could stay. Then what you're looking at is the renovations of things across the parking lot. There's 20 different designs to go with this. It could be 4 fields, 5 fields. We're talking about parking. That's all things to be kind of addressed in the next phase. But all of that, sports and areas could move across the street. But we do still have a nice, field over here, a lot of nice play area for the primary school as well, and certainly a space that could be for a practice field. We did talk about creating a little bit of a Head Start play area over there as well. So even for those 2 classrooms that would be moved, there could be a small play space over there for the smaller students. So 4 big scenarios: rebuilding the middle school, enlarging the high school, and then a couple of varieties within that. The first is saying, all right, if we rebuild the middle school at the high school, here's all these advantages. We looked at construction costs in this area. Construction costs is another subject. Things are really high right now. Hopefully things come back down. But just kind of judging by your neighbors, Warrior Run just opened bids in March for a new elementary school. It's about $27.5 million. There's another $1 million in there for some first. But you were looking at about $280 per square foot. That's building and site costs in a neighboring district. We always say building costs are based on 2 things: the size of the building you're doing, and then your location. The location's set. That's set by prevailing wage rates by the state. So regardless of the design, regardless of what is being created, the labor rates are set by the state. So if you look at what your neighbors are doing, that pretty much gives you a good example of roughly the cost of new construction for a new building. So if we take that $280 a square foot and we multiply that to about 150,000 square feet, which is about what we were showing for the previous design, you're at about 44 million, 43 and a half for a new building, which brings you to about 52 for total project. That's just the middle school. And as we showed, there's certainly some needs at the high school. And by doing that, it's a little tight over there. So the option became, well, geez, if we're at 51 million and we're only, kind of swapping out one for one, is there another way that we could build less and have better effect to the high school? And that's where option 2 came in. Creating the 7th and 8th grade center on a 2-story, on the 1st and 2nd floor, that should say, on a 2-story floor for the high school, adding additional classrooms and additional needs at the high school, trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, if you will. The numbers here look like this. We're looking at about $20 million here just in renovations to the high school. If you then add the 61,000 square foot addition, that's another 17. We're always going to be adding contingencies. We're always going to be adding, this is basically saying, we're at best, we're not bidding this for a year anyway. Costs are going to continue to rise. So our budgets, our estimates are always wrapped in contingency and being very conservative. This takes us to about 38 million. When you look at soft costs and other things and furniture, you're at about 45. So 45 as opposed to 51. 51 was the middle school only, nothing in the high school. 45 is saying, let's build half a new middle school. Let's spend the other 20 million in the high school needs. And for $6 million, 6.5 less, we've got a whole new complex here. And we've provided a real state-of-the-art area for our middle school students. So when we line up all of those costs together and include other things like relocating the ball fields across the street, we threw in a budget of about $2 million. In conversations this week, we think that's actually a little high. Could be closer to about $1.5 million, but it's still a lot of money and a lot of needs just to move those fields and grade all that across the street. If we look at infrastructure upgrades, as we mentioned earlier, at Liberty Valley at $5 million, we're going to go in and we're going to fix what's broken. But essentially, we're maintaining all of the walls there. We added $500,000 for the minimal modifications at the primary school. That's probably a little high as well. But now you're at about 52.5 for everything. Again, if we were looking at basically close to that before for only the middle school, this is a budget that's saying we've got the high school, we've got new fields, we've got all the work that needs to be done at Liberty Valley, as well as some minor work at the primary school in order to, believe it or not, we're finally at the end. Timeline, just because it's important to understand production and schools. Any building project takes about easily 10 to 12 months for approvals, again, just like we talked about with the fields, to get through what's called land development. There is a lot of steps along the way from starting a building project from concept, which you've kind of seen, but then diving into all of the details. Again, more budget analysis, more updates to the boards throughout a lot of meetings with teachers and students, community members. So at a best case scenario, at the quickest case scenario, we would be looking at a construction project starting next summer, and it would take easily 2 years to complete, meaning you would build the new addition first. When that's completed, you would actually move high school students in there at first, leave the middle school where it is, renovate the areas of the middle school, and then when it was done in 2024, high school kids go back into the high school, then you could look at abandoning the existing middle school building. Again, it's important to know that at its quickest, you are looking at 3 years before something like this. And as things slide, it
doesn't really work to move kids mid-academic year or in the middle of the month. So typically those things want to happen over a summer. So again, the 2024 completion could easily be 25. That's fine, but it's at a minimum 3 years at its fastest, even from the word go. This was, what the heck was this? This is the same thing as we just kind of showed. So this was the other scenario of saying, if we're looking at moving ahead maybe in the fall, this is how this would slide to a 2025 completion date as well. So again, it's a big decision, but obviously we're up against a little bit of a clock if you're looking at a 24 opening date versus a 25. So if we got started in the fall of this year, again, same collaborative process, a lot of meetings, but you'd be looking at more of a fall 22 start, spring of 23 to start construction and opening. But that is it. Or not, that's the short version. So a lot of information over the last couple of months, a lot of virtual calls and a lot of meetings went into this. There are many other options as well, and a lot to digest in one night. But again, we're saying this is about digesting tonight, not moving ahead with any major decisions, and giving you guys some time to ask. Or was that crystal clear and you have no questions?
Any questions from the group?
Then we're getting a big book. When will that be here?
Yes. We are finalizing. We got some of the gas and electric bills and things that all go into that's the written part of all of the issues. Mainly that's concerning a lot of, but it will share a lot of those options as well. It does require you to look at many options. So regardless of what options you chose, you could go back and did look at other options and didn't do those, and it's still your decision to make. Wrapping the book part of that up now, obviously the PDF.
What's our timeline? What's our internal action plan for timeline and obligations with all this? I mean, there's two scenarios with a kind of a large, high-level view of a project execution timeline, but what is like our next steps? What do we need to do? And in what time frame?
First thing that we talked about are the fields, because if we want to have the fields ready, if we're taking a field away here, we want to move over on to that. We need probably 2 years until we have a well-seeded field ready to cut for actual use for students. And I can't see, and Bobby and I've had these discussions, I think the 2025 is much more reasonable than 2024. We've just come out of a pandemic. We do have borrowing capacity, but we don't want to hit our ceiling on our borrowing capacity either. So I think 2025 is realistic as opposed to 2024.
Yeah, 2024 had us approving something in June. That's like soon. So I was just kind of getting a feel for where we're at. Okay.
And for finances, I'm getting information from our financial consultant and bond counsel about the borrowing capacity and what it does mean to us for payments on an annual basis, at least a projection. And we're going to have a meeting with KCBA and the financial consultant. And then I'll present the information to the finance committee when I do have that. So at this time, I don't have those numbers, but I do want to say that the admin team worked very, very hard to create this, and I'm very proud of all the time they've taken. So I'm going to take as much time as I need to financially support the project.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate that. That's great, because we also have the VOTEC too that we're going to talk about here in a minute. That's also on our radar screen. So, okay.
So Chris, this does not include the land development that was the athletic field across the street, right? It does not include that.
It does.
So
It
in
does.
the list of things that we gave at the end, which included $2 million for the fields, that does include all of that. So
2 million.
one of the things that came through, we were asked to say, if you're trying, and again, it's completely up to you as far as timeline, but if you were trying to get seeds in the ground this fall, we went, all right, well, it could be 5 months of approvals and documentation and all that other stuff. That would get you to October. That's exactly when you want to be planning, or really in September. So what you're looking at tonight was a plan to design and document, and that's actually, it's not even us, that's another company's proposal to start the design and documentation process of the seeding and grading of the fields across the street. But that was included in the budget of that. So the budget of fields across the street was 99 and change for design. In that, it shows that the cost of seeding and grading was about 680,000, with the idea of about another $500,000 when you were ready to put in all of the baseball fields, put up fences, backstops, bases, parking, and kind of go from just the a nice green lawn across the street to the actual playing surfaces. That design would cut in and be ready for that design. The baseball field's going to go here. Practice field is here. The soccer field is here. And it's going to grade it with all of the drainage and everything that's needed. And then it's just a matter of saying, all right, we're ready to play baseball on it. Let's cut in the infield, put up backstops and things like that. But there, you're moving, if you move more than an acre of dirt, and that's 20 acres, everybody starts looking at it. So that's NPDES, that's county, that's state, that's environmental. That takes some time. Again, if there was, one of the questions we were asked was, if we told you to go tomorrow, what's the quickest we could do it? Versus, if we waited a little bit, that was the 24 to 25 scenario, which is totally fine. Same thing with seeding. If you wanted to seed this fall, you should get started right away, at least with surveying and testing of that area. If you wanted to wait till the spring, okay, great. That could push back a little bit.
Can we seed without permits? Or do we need permits for that, right? Everything is
Well,
predicated on permits.
You can't grade without permits. So if you went over there and seeded, you'd have a nice yard or a nice lawn that's curved like this. And then
Right.
you'd go to play and everybody go, all right, cut down 2 feet here, build up 3 feet here, and you just rip up all the grading you just did. So it's the grading and the stormwater management that you need the permits for.
But we would need the first stages to get the permits going. And then we're in control of our debt. Yeah, the MPDES, right?
Right. And that's the proposal that they provided for tonight. All of the design and approvals for whatever you're doing.
Oh, that's in, okay. That's
In Montour County as well. Because
Multiple
the
counties,
ENS,
multiple municipalities, so it's
every time you move any dirt, not even if it's less than an acre, in Montour County, you still need a permit from the Montour County Conservation District. That's number one.
right. So it's a little like if you're going to plant potatoes, no one go have at it. But as soon as you start moving dirt and grading things, that's when everybody wants to take a look.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Very nice.
Is that going to be available for, do we get a copy of that if somebody wants to go back? Like electronic copy? Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Okay, we'll move on through the agenda. Item 6 is our consent agenda items. Would anybody want to make a motion to approve items 12.1, 12.2, 13.1 through 13.5 as a group?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Fish. Thank you, Mr. Kirsch. That's a voice vote, right? Yeah.
Roll
consent. Oh, roll call.
Dr. Gatachu,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky.
Sorry about that.
Is not on. Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert, Mrs. Edmeades,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Appreciate that, everybody. Item 7, athletic fields. The board will take action to approve the engineering and site designs and permits for athletic fields on the State Hospital Road and across from DPS, not to exceed a maximum cost of $99,885. Someone like to make a motion to approve those costs to
Mr.
continue?
Huron, may I say something?
Okay.
So I am also asking, and it's not in written form here, but instead of using general operating money, if we could use the capital reserve fund to pay for that. So I do.
I'm looking for some support on that question. So
No, so that's where the funding will come from that motion, not the general operating, but the capital reserve.
okay,
Just information only.
okay, FYI. Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Fish. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Edmeades. Okay.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Dr. Gursky's not here. Mr. Kirsch?
Yes.
Mr. Reichert? Mrs. Edmeades?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Mrs. Fish?
Yes.
Dr. Katachu?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Huron?
Yes. You forgot me. All right, thank you. Motion carries. Okay, athletics and activities, item 8. Is there a motion tonight to table this item?
Motion to table this item, please.
I second.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kirsch?
Yes.
Mr. Reichert? Mrs. Edmeades?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Mrs. Fish?
Yes.
Dr. Katachu?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. Huron?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Where are we? Finance. Yes. Is this yours, Bobby? Or is there?
You have to vote on 11.3 bills for payment.
Oh, 11. Oh, I have it marked wrong here. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, item 11.3, bills for payment. So item 11.3 to approve, board will take action to approve the bills for payment for April 8th, 2021 through May 5th, 2021 as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I second.
Thank you.
Mr. Reichert? Mrs. Edmeades?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Mrs. Fish?
Yes.
Dr. Katachu?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch?
Yes.
And Mr. Reichert? Oh, and never mind. I'm sorry. He abstained. Mr. Huron? I have to take Dr. Gursky out of here is what I have to do.
Yes.
Yes.
Starting to get a complex.
Terry, do you need a motion for that?
That's not easy for me.
Terry, do you need a motion for that?
No.
Okay.
No, I just, it kind of didn't officially happen.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Motion carries. All right. Item 11.4, board will take action to accept Danville Head Start and Pre-K Counts continuation application and budget for the 2021 through 2022 school year as presented. I have a motion for item 11.4 as presented. Thank you.
I
Ms.
second.
Simmons. Thank you, Doctor.
Mrs. Edmeades?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Mrs. Fish?
Yes.
Dr. Katachu?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch?
Yes.
Mr. Reichert? Mr. Huron?
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Item 11.5, Head Start budget revision. The board will take action to approve the Head Start program to submit a budget revision in the amount of $50,000 from personnel to equipment for the purchase of an all-wheel drive vehicle for staff to safely travel to home visits, trainings, and meetings, and transporting families and children to appointments.
You're looking for a motion?
Well, a motion or discussion, but certainly a motion is
A motion to
option.
approve.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Mr. Riker.
Mrs. Gordon,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Gatacho,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert, Mrs. Edmeades, Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 11.6. The board will take action to approve the Mets Food Service Renewal Year Cost Reimbursable Contract for the 2021 through 2022 school year with a guarantee to the district of $70,000 as presented. I have a motion for item 11.6.
A motion to
Thank you,
approve.
Doctor. Thank you, Ms. Edmeades.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Gatacho,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert, Mrs. Edmeades,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Item 11.7, VOTEC project funding. The board will take action to approve using $390,775. The proceeds that were received in 2018 through 2019 from the sale of the Danville Area Elementary School Front Street building to be assigned to be used for the Columbia ACTS construction project. The proceeds are currently in the capital reserve fund balance as assigned to future construction projects. This is something we had talked about at the other
I have
meeting.
a question. Do we know what this project is yet? I mean, is that finalized with them or no? I mean, the last I knew, it's not a finalized project.
Yeah, they have made revisions and it's now a $16.8 million project, so they pared it down quite a bit. And they are looking at, and I don't know if somebody has more information, but they're looking at having the districts approve it potentially this summer.
Okay, so it is
Yeah.
still on.
It's definitely on the
Okay.
table. It's just been changed to much lesser amounts.
Yeah, they greatly reduced the scope and
I
almost
knew
cut the
that
project
they
in
were
half.
working on
from-
changing, but yeah, okay.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Seconded.
all right, thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Gatacho,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
No.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert, Mrs. Edmeades,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Is there any other discussion we need on the VOTEC project funding at this time?
The next item on the agenda is funding for next year's discussion for the VOTEC project. So our goal was to set aside $390,775 every year for the VOTEC project. So with the approval of the last agenda item, that will set aside currently $781,550 for the VOTEC project.
What's that figure again? I'm sorry.
$781,550.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so for the 21-22 academic school year or fiscal year, I am proposing to, and it's not on, it's for discussion. I'm proposing to set aside the sale of the Riverside building, the $325,000, and set aside that for the VOTEC project as well. And the remainder of what we wanted for the 390, we still have money in the capital reserve from the sale of DES. So another $65,775 to make our what we wanted to set aside whole. So the total amount by the end of 21-22 that we will have set aside for the Columbia Montour VOTEC project would be $1,172,325. That will leave a remaining balance based on the construction of the maintenance building this year and the completion of the high school and athletic project in the assigned for capital projects and debt payments other than the Columbia Montour Votech at $4,047,684.81.
So the 1,172,000, that is enough to cover what our. portion-
No, it is not. So we're looking just over $4 million.
Yeah, it may even be a little less with the changes, but approximately 4 million.
So we'll have almost 1.2 million set aside for
Right.
that. And then the total combined of the are assigned for capital projects or debt payments and Columbia Montour Votech is $5.2 million, just over. So that's my recommendation. And we actually don't have to vote on that until July because it's the 21-22 year and we haven't officially sold Riverside yet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Oh, sorry. I
Yep.
also wanted to let you know that I did check with bond counsel and our financial advisors about this because there's certain regulations for when you sell buildings, and we are allowed to designate the sale of those monies for the VOTEC project. So I just want to clarify.
Great. Okay. Okay, item 11.9, Service First Ironman Hub. The board will take action to approve closing the Service First Ironman Hub located in the cafeteria in the Danville High School. The partnership between Danville Area School District and Service First will continue, including providing financial literacy and a work cooperative for students.
I'll make that motion.
Is the hub used much?
No, it's completely closed this year, and they did, the Service First came to us, and they had done, how many transactions, and it was very, very minimal for them to have actually someone here to run it. But if you see in the next item for discussion, we are talking about an ATM system, which they felt might be a better source. So we need to look at that.
Okay, I second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Edmeades.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard, Mrs. Edmeades,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, item 11.10. You want to cue that up, Dr. Boyle?
Certainly. And talking to the representatives from Service First Federal Credit Union, we had discussions on how it would be best to serve the community and our students with banking. And the idea is everybody does their banking with an ATM anymore. Kids don't write checks. They don't deposit money. And so the ATM piece is very beneficial to all the students. So Service First is talking to their board about locating one probably outside our gym area, because then individuals who even come in for other activities in the auditorium or the gymnasium would have an access to an ATM as well. So that's what we're looking at, to create a community service, but to really help the kids understand what needs to be done. So yeah, that we'll continue those discussions, and then once they come back and make final decisions, I've already talked to Mr. Ryan about the technology that would be needed, and we have sufficient to serve that without adding any more.
That costs a lot of money to do that.
It won't cost us money; it will cost the bank money.
Okay, good. I like
Cost
that.
you money, sir.
What?
It'll only cost you.
I don't have any
You'll-
money.
You'll have to put the $20 bills in.
I don't have any $20 bills. I got pocket change at best and a little lint.
Okay.
All right. 11.11 is budget transfer. The board will take action to approve the budget transfer for the 2020 through 2021 school year as presented. Do I have a motion for item 11.11?
I'll make the motion. I
Thank you,
second.
Mr. Kirsch. Thank you.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard, Mrs. Edmeades,
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 12.3. Do we want to combine 12.3 and 12.4 or take action on them independently?
Motion to combine.
Motion to combine from Mr. Kirsch.
Hold on.
Yeah, these are consent.
I'll second it.
Second, okay, thank you, Ms. Edmeades. We're combining 12.3 and 12.4.
Mr. Reichert. Mrs. Edmeades.
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon.
Yes.
Mrs. Fish.
Yes.
Dr. Katachu.
Yes.
Mr. Gordon.
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we are now on item 15. Correct? Get that right? Board concerns, items for next meeting, or other things from the board?
May I make a comment, please?
Oh, absolutely.
First, I want to welcome Mrs. Gordon. She has been a great addition to our board, and I appreciate her willingness to come on early. She is a candidate for the school board, and I find it very impressive that you have chosen to apply and join us sooner than later. As the fact that the others didn't choose to apply, but I really appreciate your initiative to come on board, even though you haven't officially been elected at this time. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon.
Thank you, and well put. I echo that. Congratulations and welcome. Wonderful. Any other board comments or concerns? Okay, I have one. I'd like to clear the air on behalf of this school board and from my seat. There's been enough rhetoric in the community about allegations that this board conducts their business as secret meetings. And I want to go on record. This board does not conduct secret meetings. And I'll say it again. This board is completely above board. We're proud of that. We're probably one of the most transparent boards I've been exposed to. We have 2 meetings a month. We have our solicitor engaged in every action we take. And I will offer this. If there's anybody in our community that feels strongly that this board is conducting secret meetings, that's very serious. And I offer to that persons, or anybody that'd like to, that's making those allegations about this school board, to make an appointment and contact me, because I'd like to learn more about why they feel that way. Okay, I take that seriously. There's no room to be divisive in this community and allege that this school board is doing anything that appears illegal. And if somebody wants to have that discussion, my contact information is on the website. So I offer that. And there's passion in my voice, because we take this this responsibility to the students in this district very seriously. And saying that about our school board and all the hard work that goes on here, and people don't want to show up and participate, but yet they want to say scathing remarks that somehow we're doing something illegal, that's wrong. And if they feel that way, come talk to me. I'd like to learn more about why. Okay, thank you.
Chris. Kudos to you. I was going to say that tonight.
Okay. All right, sorry that my passion gets in front of some of this, but that this is just not good for our community, folks. Let's focus on our children and focus on what we need to do. All right, is there anybody else with any other board comments or concerns? Anything for next agenda, next meeting? No? Okay. All right, our next order of business is our traditional second public comment period. Again, this is our standard practice. We've been doing this for a long time. Second public comment is open to individuals in our community that would like to make a public comment. We do follow our standard practices, which is to give us your name and address. And we're asking to limit your opportunity to speak tonight on 3 minutes, as it is also our standard practice. So at this point in time, I'll open it up to second public comment period.
name is Melissa Specht. I live at 1336 Bloom Road. Mr. Haran, I want
Yes.
to thank you for making that statement and letting the community and the board know that you are very passionate about the children in this district, as am I. I'm glad you did that, and I just want to let you know that my emotions and my passion will come out in this statement as well. As the board knows, along with the community, there have been changes that will be coming to the district for the 21-22 school year, that 31 staff members will be moved throughout the district. The one move that I want to address is the move from the emotional support teacher at the middle school will be moving to Liberty Valley to be a learning support teacher, and the emotional support teacher at Liberty Valley will be moving to the middle school. I want to let the board and the parents know that this move is not good for the mental health of the children who are currently at the middle school, and that we need to keep the current teacher who is at the middle school at the middle school. She has done a phenomenal job in helping these children overcome the tragedies that they have come in contact with. She has built them up and allowed them to process the things that they have gone through, to cope with them and move through them. And she has built a rapport with them, and that rapport is about to be ripped from them. They will not have the safety net, the connection that they have now because the school district has decided to move her. She has the drive, the passion to help these kids. She has made tremendous growth with all of these kids. These kids love her, and you're taking them away from her. You're taking her away from them, excuse me. And you're dealing with emotional support kids. So these kids are at higher risk than a normal middle school student.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay. So I just want to let the community know, please reach out to your building your building principal and let them know your dissatisfaction with their decisions. And just know that Alyssa Wenrick has gone above and beyond to help our kids. She has sat down one-on-one with them. She has a drive and a passion, and Alyssa is phenomenal. And she has done everything that she can to help our kids. Parents, your children's mental health is at stake here. It's up to you.
Your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would just like to remind the public that there is a public complaint policy, policy 906, that lists the policies and procedures for pursuing any type of complaint relative to programs and whatnot. So I would direct them to follow that chain of command if they have additional complaints that would like to address.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comments? Looking through the room first. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's okay.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Amber Walter, and I live at 914 Franklin Street here in Danville, Pennsylvania. I'm going to kind of follow up from what Mrs. Specht has brought up to everybody here. About 13 days ago, our students that are in this community brought up some concerns on their own behalf. I, as a parent, was like, oh, I'm like, change like this happens. It happens all the time. I was informed by other concerned parents in the community about how their kids are really feeling about this movement. My issue with this is that parents don't know this. If you don't have a student that kind of has a relationship with you to bring these items up to you, they don't know what's going on. I, on social media, reached out to parents saying, there are changes that are happening. Do talk to your children. You do have people that are there to listen to you. I'm advocating for parents that can't reach out or kind of feel uncomfortable about it. This is something that I normally do not do. I am a very behind closed doors person. I work and I go and do things with my kids. I will stand here and say that a lot of this movement has to deal with students in emotional support, behavior health, IEPs, 504s, and I feel it was overlooked tremendously. I had a meeting with some staff in the Danville Area School District, and after that meeting, Alyssa Wenrick, who is fantastic, has a new position here, who is the Director of Emotional Support, did go and talk to our students. Amazing. That's what this district does. They really are looking to see what is best for our kids. I love that. But something big here was missed when it involves those students. When my child is able to make these huge gains in less than 2 years, you could say that it could be age, but I doubt that during the pandemic where they've really had almost maybe a year with a teacher that has really brought out the best in them, not only as a
You have
student,
30 seconds.
not only as a student, but as a young individual themselves. You've got great teachers in place. Please do not break something that is not broken. Please listen to our kids, the students, and reach out to the parents. Let them know what's going on. See what they have to say about it. We have a lot of parents, a lot of students in this district. Reach out. It makes us feel
Your
happy
time's
about
up.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else? Jeff, is there anybody out in virtual land?
Yes, we have one from virtual.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead and state your name and address and unmute.
Hi, everyone. This is Jennifer Jones. I'm from the CMSU Behavioral Health Unit. I apologize I couldn't get it on sooner, but I just want to take a moment and thank the Danville School Board and the Danville School District for partnering with us with your SPM club and trying to make that an effort across the other school districts across Pennsylvania, and also working with us with getting them the specialized training. Again, apologize I couldn't get on sooner, but I just wanted to reach out and let you know that we do appreciate it. And BHARP and the PA Systems of Care has really taken notice of what those young ladies and young men are doing there, and the openness of the school board to allow them to have this club be recognized. We do not have a lot of clubs in the schools across Pennsylvania that's just for mental health focus. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. I'd just like to comment so that the public does know that there is a process that happens every year when it comes to looking at assignments for the next school year. This is a process that we have followed. It is in policy that the administrators and the superintendent work together to make determinations for what is best for all students, for the school buildings, for the culture, and how we can proceed with our best academic programs. It does require changes at times and not always making everyone happy, but we have always had success in making our moves, and we expect to continue to do that. Thank you.
Jeff, is there anybody else that would like to make a public comment?
Anyone else in attendance that want to make a public comment, please raise your hand. No more public comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that said, item 17 is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.